All right, so welcome to Toronto Real Estate Podcast, where we peel back TV's gloss and dive into the real estate's nuts and bolts. Forget the flashy editing and scripting drama on $1 Million Listing or Selling Sunset. Let's just throw that right out the window. And here we discuss the real grind behind the glamour. And today I have the fabulous Queen of Acquisitions, VP Sales of Fox Marin, Jessica Rubash-Spillis, or maybe it's the other way around, but
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Exactly. I think we all are. And we have my fabulous partner in crime, co-founder of Fox Marin, the creative voice behind the brand, Corey Marin herself here today.
Hi, everybody.
And my name is Ralph Fox. I'll be your host. I am the co-founder and broker of record at Fox Marin. And here we are ready to talk about one of the most topical things that always comes up in conversation if you're a real estate agent or broker, if you're in the real estate industry, or just if you live in Toronto and have a mild interest in real estate, which basically covers about 9 million people. Anyways, we're going to dig into it today. Such an exciting topic to get into. So the first heading that we really want to take the deep dive into is the glamour perception versus the real deal reality. So Corey, I'm going to put this one over to you. And at a high level, kind of let's break down your thoughts on the difference between what people are consuming on TV as to how real estate is traded and what happens versus actually the real deal.
Well, there's obviously a huge interest in this topic with so many shows covering real estate and what happens behind the scenes. And I have air quotes when I say that. So we've got tons of trending shows like Buying Beverly Hills and Selling Sunset. And I think there's Selling the OC. And then there's the OGs like your Property Brothers out there. And then you've got your $1 Million Listing LA, your $1 Million Listing New York. And then we even have our own Toronto Amazon show right now, which is highly produced, great quality, lots of big budget behind a Toronto show, which also indicates there's an audience here in Canada for this type of content. So people love this stuff and people ask all the time, is it like how you see on these shows? And I can say with 100% certainty, almost they are the immediate reflection of what it is not like to be a real estate broker. We don't walk around looking like that, nor do we have the time to put into our hair and makeup and clothing like that. Deals don't happen as effortlessly as that. We don't drive around in luxury vehicles all day. We are certainly not having liquid lunches from morning to night. And I've never been to a broker event where there's like a circus act ever. So there is a lot of things that are showcased on television, like any genre of television, that are there for entertainment purposes. And the real estate is anything but entertaining.
Yeah. And we should add a disclaimer that there may be some people that in fact do that as part of their day-to-day real estate lives, but that is not us in any way.
No.
Or anyone that we know.
I just can't imagine how they're getting any work done.
Exactly.
Jess, do you have anything to add between the difference of the glamorous perception that real estate appears to be on reality TV versus really how things operate?
Well, Ralph, having some experience in reality TV and in a past life, I can tell you that these shows, number one, need to be entertaining. And the truth is if you really saw a lot of the monotonous tasks that a realtor has to look over on a day-to-day basis, it really is not as scintillating as the liquid lunches or the glamorous parties and broker opens. And so I think that to get the views, you kind of do have to show this more interesting side of things. I remember the first time that I watched Selling Sunset, having been a realtor already for about 5 years at that time. I thought, oh my goodness, I want to be a real estate agent. And then I thought, wait, I am one. It just looks totally different.
Yes.
And the first thing I thought as well is, how do they even have the time to be having these conversations at the office? Because if you see me walk into the office, I'm a total stress ball. I don't even have 5 minutes to have any conversation about who wore what at dinner yesterday or who, called who a bitch at last night's broker open. I couldn't even have 5 minutes of bandwidth for that. And so I think it's important for the general public to remember that, as entertaining as it is, be very critical about the information that you're being received with, because it is meant to be entertaining. And the truth is that real estate is not nearly as glamorous or as dramatic, and especially in Toronto, where things move so quickly and you're typically dealing with 5 or 10 clients at a time, as opposed to the one that just very smoothly works out in 2 minutes at the boardroom table.
All cash
So
offer.
It couldn't be more different.
I'm going to say something very controversial.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say something controversial.
Yeah. And I am the least person to consider myself to be a feminist. But if I look at the way women are portrayed on these shows, they're either portrayed as like drag queens or women of the night. And
Yes.
it is anything but and also very subservient. If you watch the way these shows are done, women are portrayed as realtors as being very subservient towards men. And the greatest irony is we have access to data which shows the production of agents across the GTA, and usually the top performing agents are women. And so I think there's a real disconnect from the way women are portrayed to the way men are portrayed on that show to reality. And
Totally.
it's very much a female-dominated, in my opinion, profession for good reason. Women are more organized. They're more empathetic in a very emotional type of transaction. And none of that is depicted. And all of the top women agents that I know, a couple of them are on this podcast right now, don't conduct themselves in the way it's portrayed on these shows. And I think it's a real disservice to women who are at the highest level of this business, to women who are in this business, to women who are thinking about becoming in this business, or to just the whole female, I was going to say race, but just what would you call it? Female
Gender.
Thank you. The female gender. And I think no one ever says that. And I think no one ever talks about that. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think you make a really great point. Absolutely. I think so much of it is all about how you look in order to impress the client, when it should be about how intelligent you are, how articulate you are, how much can you go to bat and advocate for your client and showcase that in the first 5 minutes that you meet them, as opposed to them being distracted by your Birkin bag and 9-inch Louboutin heels.
Completely. I'm always very offended by the stereotype on these reality real estate shows as well, in terms of how the females are portrayed. And as Ralph suggested, the top brokers in Toronto are often female. They are so down to earth, so trustworthy, so effing smart, hardworking, willing to roll up their sleeves and do things below their pay grade, whatever that means. That means like cleaning a toilet if they have to, or meeting a client at 11 o'clock at night. And there is none of that aesthetic or gossip or talking about people or focusing on what people look like at all. And so if you meet a really almost like, I feel like it's almost the antithesis. I almost feel like a hardworking agent in Toronto anyways, at least the ones that we know that are female, are often schlepping around in their sweatpants, like carrying like a couch on their back, a computer in the other hand, and trying to find a charger in the middle of, I don't know, a supermarket so that they can negotiating a deal. So I agree, the stereotype is really bad. I do think there's a couple that stand out. Like, I don't know why, but like I feel like, and maybe it's just me, maybe I am getting sucked into the show, but I feel like $1 Million Listing, though, that show seems to showcase real agents a bit more. And like I think they do real business in real life, like the Freddie Eklunds of the world and Ryan Serhant of the world. And I actually think Tracy Tudor comes across as a pretty strong female in the reality TV genre. And I buy it. I don't know if it's true or not. Somebody please comment below if I'm wrong, but I kind of buy the fact that she is a smart, hardworking person.
The way client conversations are portrayed on these shows versus how it actually happens. Like, tell me a little bit about the difference between a listing appointment on reality TV versus a listing appointment in the real world. Tell me a little bit about how real agents interact with their clients versus how it's portrayed on TV.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway when I watch these shows is that these types of conversations, they seem A, very effortless, B, very positive, and C, very expedient. So typically the conversations that we have with clients that can often run as long as 2 hours because we're really diving into all of the details and the pros and cons, and often having very, very tough conversations are often not portrayed on TV, and it makes the deal look very easy. And I think that's what also ties into the fact that a lot of people think that being a realtor is quite easy, or that we don't do very much, because that is exactly what is being shown on these reality TV shows. But in reality, just to even prep for these conversations, you're talking about hours and hours of due diligence, research, pricing valuations, data, so that we're coming to the table as prepared as possible. And then when we're having the conversations with these clients, we're actually having a lot more back and forth. And when it comes to a listing presentation, like I said, it's often sat at a boardroom table or over Zoom, and we have slide decks, supporting documents. We're running over comparables instead of just saying, oh yeah, this house down the street sold for $2 million. So your house is going to sell for $3 million, you're good. And then on the reverse side, when we're negotiating with other agents, like sometimes these negotiations carry out 2-3 days, and sometimes into the wee hours of the night. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've been in my bed at 12:30 at night waiting to hear back from the agent whether or not we got the offer, and just, feeling so frustrated because I've been up in front of my computer since 7 a.m. and feeling so emotionally tied to the transaction for my client because I just want to see them get this win, but also being so tired and delirious and having the eye twitch, but I cannot go to bed because I'm trying to get this done for my client. This is all to say that it's far more difficult, far more tedious, far more lengthy than what is being shown on TV. I wish it was that simple, but the truth is it takes a lot of grit, a lot of tenacity, and a shit ton of patience.
Well, everything that Jess said is 100% bang on. And I would also like to add that in these reality shows, they meet a new client and then instantaneously there's trust. And the relationships in real estate are all about trust. And a lot of the time you have to prove and earn trust with your client, whether you're selling or you are buying for them or even renting for them. So that's a long process. And some people are like new to the process, and there's like a period where they're just getting their feet wet. And that requires a lot of listening skills, emotional intelligence, patience, time, commitment, effort on both parties, the client and the agent, to really find that your way through that partnership. And that is certainly not depicted on these shows. It doesn't happen like that. It happens over time and you earn it. So I feel like, and that would be the most boring content you could possibly put out there, is how long it really can take for some clients to make that first chess move. Could you imagine? It would be like 6 months of nothing happening before the client was I'm ready to make an offer. So I think that's really missed on these shows as well.
I think the two things that I really have a problem with are, number one, the agents on these shows come across as so self-interested and so greedy. And it is such a misrepresentation of the way top agents think or act. And I can tell you myself, everybody on our team, commissions literally is the furthest thing. It's how you keep score, but it's the furthest thing on our mind. And the only way that you can build a business is by looking after your client's best interests. And these shows never talk about fiduciary duty. They never show an agent fighting for $4,000 for a client, fighting to protect a client's best interests. And at the end of the day, the way you become successful in this business, which is a high trust, high contact business, is by always looking out for advocating and protecting your client's best interest. And when you do that, You don't have to go on a reality TV show and be a fake agent and pretend that you have business that you really don't. The business will just come to you. And that is one of the most fundamental things that really puts me in distress when I watch these shows, is because it's counterintuitive to what this business really is and to the way successful, productive agents actually think. And it's a clear and blatant misrepresentation for the amount of work that goes into every single interaction. So when we do a listing presentation, it's probably a full day's worth of work before we even talk to the client.
Mhm.
I mean, we're lucky if we can do it in a day.
Exactly. You don't
Usually
walk into a
it's 3 or
place
4
and it's
days.
like,
Yeah.
this is worth about, I'm going to say between $4 and $4.2 million. The amount of research, due diligence, follow-up, spreadsheets, presentation, decks, all of that goes into it at a high level. And it's what a client deserves, but it's what is something that must be delivered. It is just such a misrepresentation to the professionals in our industry who look after their clients' best interest. And it's
Well, it
upsetting.
doesn't help with the stereotype of how
No.
everyone perceives real estate to be, which is
Exactly.
like we run around in glamorous outfits, we do deals, and then we make insane commissions and we don't work that hard. So it just continues with the stereotype, which does not help with a business that is already challenged for being respected as a profession. So these just shows just feed into the narrative and feed and feed and feed. And so I 100% think that's how people think. I think my own parents think that Ralph and I live like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Which is hilarious.
Even our own clients, they'll calculate the commission, but they won't think about all of the expenses and splits and fees and time that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention all of the clients that we work with that often can take a year or two.
Or never.
And at that point, we're certainly at a negative.
We should make a real estate show about all the people that never end up transacting.
Yeah.
I think they should take the reality show, take the commissions, and then split it by the hours that you spent with the client. And then you'll see that you're probably making minimum wage a lot of the time.
Yeah.
That would be brilliant.
That is how it should be done. Not like, I just made, and they have these figures. And also on those reality shows, they'll show what the full commission is, which is actually split between the listing agent and the buyer agent. But they'll put the full commission going to the listing broker. So it looks like this insane inflated amount.
Yeah.
I'm like, they are not making that on that listing, nor is that listing worth that. And nor did that agent do that much volume. Like, it's just so much smoke and mirrors.
And nor is that listing actually the listing agent. Yeah. That's a whole other thing. And let's transition a little bit now into market realities, talking about the complexities of real estate markets, including the fluctuations of markets, competition, inventory, absorption rates, bidding wars, and the amount of research that goes into it on the part of the agents helping their clients navigating through that. All of that always seems to be missed in these shows, and everything is always a great market and a great time.
Yeah, it does tend to be very focused on the wins, and nobody really talks about all the many, many losses that we have to endure, especially in Toronto.
And that goes back to Jessica's point. This is all done for entertainment purposes. And so no one really wants to watch people lose. People want to see people win, or maybe they lose, but then they win in the end. It's like an archetype that these shows follow a pattern, right? Yeah. And so again, how absolutely boring television would it be if we were talking about the absorption rate and how much inventory we may or may not have at a certain time of year, or what the appreciation rate might be year over year, or what the market stats just published. Like, I could not think of more boring content than talking about sort of the analytics and the dynamics of the economy. Like, it would be a snooze fest. I don't even know if anyone could entertain put it out there, at least in an entertaining way. So I get why it's focused on the wins and the quick deals and the international buyer flying in on their private jet and coming and buying. Oh my God, there's this amazing $10 million mansion that's just vacant and available, and I'm going to buy it in an all cash deal, and we're going to close in 30 days. So, and zero due diligence, like none of that. So I get it. It would be really boring, Ralph, I think, if we focused on market realities.
The one thing that is interesting about our business, and it's funny watching other agents sort of ride this roller coaster that is Toronto real estate, is there are tremendous amounts of highs and lows, like incredible wins and soul crushing defeats. And it's very much like, and it's a joke between me and Corey, highs and lows, highs and lows, highs and lows. One day you're a genius and everything you touches goes to gold. And the next moment, the real estate gods have decided to crush your soul.
Yes.
And that can really happen in such drama in our business. And it's one of the things that I think would make for such compelling television, is to really try and show those highs and to show those deep lows that happen in our business, because there are no certainties in real estate.
Yeah, regardless of your intelligence, years of experience, client pool, these things are often completely out of your control. And it's just all about how you deal with those losses.
Tenacity, relentlessness.
Yeah, you definitely need to be very mentally tough to endure all the highs and lows of this business, especially with how rapidly they come and unexpectedly they come.
Yes. I also think that one thing's really missed in these shows, and it would never be depicted, I mean, maybe it's part of the reality show that we create about it, the real real estate, is agents are often the punching bag through the entire real estate transaction. And the reason being is that this is exceptionally high stress for clients. This is largely their biggest financial transaction or asset that they have. There's family involved, there's relationships involved, there's risk involved, and there's like a personal exposure as well, because they've got to either showcase their own personal home or showcase that they're fighting with their wife or husband, or they don't have a great relationship with their kids, whatever it is. And it's money. So like money never puts people necessarily in a good headspace. And then on paper, it's seen that the agent is making XYZ. And that, again, we're just like having our liquid lunch and going to the gym, and Instagram does not help with any of this either. And then all of a sudden, the agent somehow, I don't know, maybe it's just me, people comment below, become the punching bag. And if anything goes wrong, it's the agent's fault every single time. And I sort of think that we're verbally abused sometimes. Like, like either directly or passive aggressively. And I almost prefer somebody just to like get at me like a directly, because it's the passive aggressiveness that stresses me out more. Or like a text message that comes in at 11 o'clock at night that has a lot of context to it. And you're like, oh my God, it's my fault, or whatever it is. And so this is a business that I find very hard not to take personally. And it's partially because the client uses you as a catalyst to like let go of all their stress.
Especially when they're not paying you hourly in order to do that. So it's not like a lawyer where you're thinking, oh my God, I'm really stressed, so I'm going to call them and ramble on about whatever for 2.5 hours. You're not going to do that to a lawyer because it's going to cost you $1,500 to do that. But to your realtor, you'll call them up and you'll tell them about, you know, your past life experiences and how that's interplaying with your real estate decisions today and how that's causing you stress, and on and on and on. So, there are so many roles that we play in what we do that just does not translate or ever come across on these television shows, for sure.
I was just going to say that I think because we are, first of all, Ralph, your point is excellent, because they're not thinking of the monetary value versus time. It's endless. And I think in addition to that, the perception that we don't do anything or that we're having liquid lunches, they think that we have the time. And don't get me wrong, I actually really want to be a support system and a rock for our clients, and I want to be available to them all the time. But there are people who very much take advantage of that. The more you give, the more that they take. And I think because we are front row and center of their entire journey, they don't really see all of the work that goes in behind the scenes and all of the additional team members that contribute behind the scenes. I mean, oftentimes they don't even have an opportunity to meet their lawyers at any point. They're emailing with them, and that's basically where it starts and finishes. And so it's very easy for them to reach out to their agent via text, phone call, courier pigeon, whatever it is. Whereas all of these other individuals that are at play that in some instances have more responsibility to correct certain issues or more responsibility to ensure certain things are looked after, it's just easy for them to go after their agent. And I think if the general public knew just how much work goes on behind the scenes, or even the limitations that we have as agents, they would be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always said that in today's day and age, some of the tools that the general public has available to them is more sophisticated than the tools that us agents even have. And we run into roadblocks and obfuscated information all the time that we have to sort through, that we need second opinions from a lawyer from, all often at our cost, that we try not to bother the client with, so that we can have this information readily available to them, but we still have our limitations.
I often think that one of the other misses of reality versus reality TV is the emotional cost and the emotional burden that we carry while we take on the stress of our clients who are crying or getting divorced or transitioning in their lives or can't handle the stress or have never made a big decision or are so afraid of making a financial decision that will lose them money potentially. Like just the burden, the emotional burden that we take on when we get off the phone after a 2-hour phone call, nobody will ever understand unless you've actually done that consistently year in, year out. And it takes a toll. It really, really takes an emotional toll. And I don't think there's any understanding of acknowledgement of what a top producing successful agent will have to take on in order to best look after and best serve their clients' best interest. That'd be great.
One thing I will say to that though, Ralph, is I don't think that everybody feels that way though. I think we feel that way, and so we can relate to each other, but I don't think that that is true for the general public. I mean, we've seen the level of sophistication over the 75,000 agents in the GTA, and I do very fervently believe that we are in the minority in that we are very emotionally connected to our clients. And like I said, and like you said, are more focused on their wins as opposed to the transaction, whether or not that has a monetary reward at the end of the journey or not.
And you will find that that will be a common characteristic of the top 1 or 2% or even 5% of agents, not the 75% of agents. But we're talking about how successful real estate agents are portrayed, not the general public of real estate agents, but the top tier. And they are taking on all of this because they're emotionally connected to the best outcome of their clients.
Yeah. Anytime I have dinner with an agent that is a top producer and does a lot of volume, it's almost like therapy for me, to be honest, because I'm like, oh my God, it's not just me.
I'm not alone.
Yeah. It's not just me that feels this way or this hurt or this bothered or this stressed or is like, as Ralph said, like taking on the burden. Like I feel like I carry it around. And so when I have had these sit downs and brainstorming sessions and like venting sessions, it's just like, oh my God, okay. I feel so much better knowing it's not just us and our team that goes to bat for people. It is agents. There are the top agents out there that are doing amazing work, telling great stories, doing a wonderful service for their client that feel exactly the same way. And that's when you're like, oh my God, is this even worth it? Because you're like, it would be so much easier to be a bartender. I always say that. I'm like, I just have bartender envy. I could just go serve some drinks at night, and I know that the client services and customer service roles are not easy either, but you go in for your shift at 5:00 and then you wrap up by midnight or 1 a.m. and then you're done. Like you're not carrying around that shift with you for the rest of the next day. So I do get bartender envy sometimes thinking, gosh, that would be an easier path. And cash.
That was, sorry to interrupt, Ray. That was one of the first things that I had to really work through mentally when I started in this career is getting used to trying to compartmentalize, but really never fully being off the clock or never fully not being present with what is happening in our clients' endeavors. And that is often when we're, when speaking of highs and lows, when we're at an all-time low, when we're daydreaming about that 9 to 5, where you can clock out at 5 o'clock and you don't have to worry or think about anything. You can move on, have dinner with your husband or your wife, and, you walk back in the next morning at 9 a.m. and you're wearing your hat again. We never take off that hat. Mm-hmm. And that does it does take a tremendous toll emotionally, physically. And I think if you don't love what you do, it's very difficult to carry that with you day to day.
Yeah, totally.
And let's talk about a little bit behind the scenes where you have realtors in stilettos wearing all kinds of crazy outfits that would take probably an entire day to walk out of your house just to look like that versus the unglamorous aspect of things that actually happen, the things that we all do on a day-to-day basis that is never showed on Toronto real estate TV show or real estate reality TV shows.
I will say, I do love the looks. I love and appreciate those looks that we see on TV. Realistically, like if I have 5 minutes to put a little bit of lip gloss on and brush my hair, like that is a win for the day. I mean, today we're doing a podcast, so I had to wake up at 6 a.m. just to have some semblance of a presentable look. But realistically, we just do not have the time. And when you're running around from property to property, meeting from person to person to the office, in the back of an Uber with, Starbucks egg bites in your mouth, trying to get an off route or trying to type up an email, you need to be comfortable. And if you see some of the top agents in the city, you will not find a single one of them in high heels, let alone stilettos or pencil skirts. And I think that is often Corey and I comment the first signs of a new agent is if they're overly dressed, and then they realize how difficult it is just to get around like that, and then how little time you have just to commit to getting yourself ready, and that just goes lower and lower and lower on the totem pole because your clients end up being more important. It's interesting, and I mean, we don't know what it's like in other cities, but here in Toronto, it's just not sustainable to be doing your job in high heels and a full face of makeup. I mean, I appreciate it. I would love to look like that every day. But if you saw me on a day-to-day basis, I look nothing like that. And I don't think any of us do.
You always seem so pulled together. I'm the one who's the schlep of the team. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it's just... First of all, I think the TikToks that make fun or mock some of the real estate outfits on one of the shows out of California is hilarious because it's like, there is no possible way anyone's walking around like that. And also, like, who has time to be that lean and thin? And I just,
oh my goodness,
it's
the Ozempic.
I'm like, how do they have time to look like this? And so, the timepiece, and then just like you said, there is no way. Like when I first started, I kind of thought I had to dress like that, and so I had like these beautiful pencil skirts and heels, and like I really put the effort in, and then like it did not take long for me to be like, I can't go to a basement dress like this and look around and look at hot water tanks and furnaces. And I can't go to backyards and then your heels are like falling into the lawn as you're walking through. It does not take long to figure out that this is not conducive to what you're doing. And I think our clients, especially Toronto's pretty laid back now, it would be really weird to meet your clients that are usually like a lot of the time it's like weekends are wearing their hoodies and their leather jackets. They've got their coffee and then you show up dressed like you're going to walk the catwalk. They would be like, what are you doing? So you want to be
I also think it propagates that stereotype that we are this objectified agent that really their only value is the way that they look when it couldn't be more opposite than that.
Exactly. And I think you are more relatable when you've got like a ponytail and you are also mirroring how your clients are dressed and you can like hustle over to the lockbox and get in and out of the backyard effortlessly without being ridiculous. So I agree. It's all show like smoke and mirrors once again. And there's like 2 agents in Toronto that walk around like that, maybe, but that's like their shtick. And I don't even know if they do volume. So, and again, it goes back to the females. Like we're not talking about this with men. on these shows. Like we're not like, how long did that guy take to put together his suit? We're like, it's only the women that you're like, they've got hair extensions, lashes, overdone brows, lip fillers. The whole look is like taken weeks to put together, and they have a stylist.
And by the way, I don't even like those looks. And maybe I'm dating myself, but I think walking around looking like an avatar filled with like Botox and crazy amounts of filler and long nails and these weird get-ups.
Oh yeah, the nails are weird.
Yeah, there's nothing attractive or motivational as a male born a long time ago views it. So I just look at these outfits and I'm just like, I'm just like,
oh my God, I'm going to totally get those nails one time just to see what you say. Those long ones?
Yeah. They look to me, they look more like clowns than actually human beings, but that's just my opinion. Okay, well, on that note, moving right along, let's talk about public perceptions. And when I say public perceptions, I'm talking about how these shows have influenced. I think we actually did a podcast on this, why people hate realtors, and we blamed all these reality TV shows. But let's just dip our toe into the water on this topic because it's all part of our conversation today. Cor, how have these shows affected the public perception of realtors, given I think we must be one of the most hated professions, but necessary somehow out there?
Well, we sort of touched on this earlier in the podcast, is the perception is that we don't work that hard, that we spend all our time getting ready every day, that we gossip behind people's back, that we make a shit ton of money, and that deals happen effortlessly. All of a sudden we have clients without trying. And for some reason, we all have international buyers that can come in and do all cash transactions within 12 hours of seeing a property. So it does not help with the stereotype of how people perceive our perception. Of course, it does not help. I don't know if any show, though, in any profession helps. Like, I'm sure if we were like talking about a fitness reality show, we know that that does not how it operates. Like people, and if we were talking about like, I don't know, like Grey's Anatomy or something, like doctors like cut those things up on YouTube and they're like, make them have the most hilarious mockeries of all these television shows. So I think every I'm sure like Suits, the one about the lawyers, like I'm sure it's like, I mean, that was like high glam. So every profession that's shown on television is like stereotyped in the wrong way. And I wish, it's funny because so many people wrote to me asking about some of the current reality shows that are out there right now. And they're like, do you think this is realistic? And I'm thinking, oh my God, like, us and me personally, and thinking like, you're asking me if you think this is realistic? I'm like, so people buy into it. If they're not in the business, I do think that people buy into it and think that's what it's actually like.
One thing I want to add to that is a lot of these shows don't show all of the sacrifices that we make. Like, they don't show us doing deals in the bathroom stall at Auntie Susie's wedding when, your whole family's out there during the wedding ceremony and you miss all of it, or birthday parties or funerals or Raptors games.
When you have your laptop on your lap and you're hot spotting.
Yeah, I mean, more often than not, like you cannot plan anything because your clients take priority every time. And that is not demonstrated in a lot of these shows. It seems to be very much on the agent's time. Not one single instance during these broker opens or boozy brunches are they being interrupted because their client wants to submit an offer, or their client wants to know how much a house is worth, or their dream house came on the market. Yeah, and if they don't see it within the hour, somebody else is going to take it, and you need to literally drop everything to make sure they get through the front door. So I think that level of urgency that is inevitable in our business is never demonstrated. And to Corey's point, any industry that you see on TV is going to be glamorized in some way, shape, or form because it's there for entertainment. And I think as long as people remember that at the end of the day, then there's no harm in it. But it would be nice to see females, especially in that space on TV, be shown a little bit more respect and less of this Charlie's Angel type where the male is, calling the shots and he just sends out his group of beautiful women with their boobs out to do all of their bidding. And I think if a single agent showed up to a listing presentation dressed like any of the Selling Sunset girls, like it looks fine on TV, but imagine your agent shows up to your house with a skimpy little dress, cocktail dress at 11 o'clock in the morning, 10 pounds of makeup and, Louboutin 7-inch heels.
And then like a little
You're
bag.
probably not going to take
computer.
them. Yeah, you're probably not going to take them very seriously. And so I think showing some sort of female character that has a little bit more grit and is less about the glam and more about her intelligence and value that she can contribute to the world that stems from her brain as opposed to the way that she looks, I think would be very beneficial and refreshing for me to see, at least.
I agree.
Okay, are there any last thoughts that either of you have to sort of wrap up this conversation, which I found to be very interesting and enlightening today?
I think that we were talked about this when we were setting up the show notes, is I think it'd be interesting to talk about what type of reality show in real estate would actually be really interesting and dynamic and good, but realistic. And so if we were to create our own show, like how would we put that together? Ralph, why don't you jump in first with your thoughts?
Well, the first thing I would do is I'd find some agents who actually work in real estate and actually are top producing and actually are at the top of their game. So I think that's a place that I would really, really try to start from. And then I would actually try and show the business the way it actually is, because it is really, really interesting. And no one's ever done that. Now, I could see there being challenges with clients and privacy and all of that. So there's definitely some roadblocks into telling that story. But I'd like to show the grit that goes into it. I'd like to show the work that goes into it. I'd like to show the sacrifice that goes into it. I'd like to show the hardship and the emotional trauma that goes into it, that's experienced by agents and the clients, which is never actually ever shown. And I think the human drama and the human story and the connection that happens throughout an entire transaction or relationship is really, really, really interesting. And when we go to dinner parties and we talk to people, people love to hear these stories. And so if you can find a way to tell these stories with real agents who are out there doing real business and who are not self-interested, but actually out there advocating for their clients and their clients' fiduciary duty, I think it would be completely compelling. And so I think it would be harder to film. It would be a harder story to tell. It would be longer timelines. But I think if you had a production company that it really was invested in a belief in knowing that this is really what people want to see, and it would be in complete contradiction to everything that's out there, I think it would be really, really compelling. And I think it's a story that really, really needs to be told.
So if I had to pick a different answer than Ralph, I would actually find it very interesting. And maybe this is less of a reality show, more of an expose, given we have a very low barrier of entry in real estate and we're at over 75,000 agents now. I think it would be very interesting for the public to see the levels of sophistication and competency amongst 75, maybe 80% of the agents out there, and how they are really representing their clients in ways that the clients don't even know. Like, I want people to see how we get calls from buyers asking us to show them properties that are our listings, which we gladly do, only for them to turn around and work with their brother, sister's, uncle's cousin, who writes up an offer for them, hasn't even stepped foot in the property, knows nothing about it, hasn't given them proper information on pricing, hasn't given them proper information on the state of the home. And they're wasting their clients' time, they're wasting their time, and the clients are banging their head against the wall, wondering why they're not moving forward in the process and why they're not making any progress, because they're not seeing firsthand how some of these professionals are representing them. And what people fail to understand is that, especially from a seller's perspective, if you are receiving offers on offer night and you're getting an offer where the paperwork is all out of sorts, it's got missing signatures, names are spelt incorrectly, how can you imbue confidence in a seller that that purchaser understands the level of commitment that they're going to make and that they're not going to run into any issues on closing? So I think that it would be very shocking for people to see just how common those types of scenarios are. And I think it might cause them to rethink who they choose to partner with. And at the very least, encourage them to interview agents, at least 2 or 3, so that they can make real-time comparisons and understand what it takes to be successful in this industry.
Love it. I'd watch that. I'd watch Ralph's show too.
It'd be pretty funny.
I think I'm going to add in my 2 ideas. I'm sure a producer will steal it. One of them would be really cool. I would love to do this actually and take 3 rookies that just finished their Humber College certification to become a realtor and then put them out there and then track their first years in the business and have all 3 of them competing to see who does well and what they're like, oh my God, this is so much different than I thought it was going to be. And then have their stories and then see at the end out of the 3 of them, if any of them survive and what that looks like and how much money did they actually make. And like, it would be nothing. Like, it would just be so interesting. And they're doing like leases and they're driving all over the place and they're doing open houses. And they're like, what is this? I thought it was going to be like selling sunset and it's not. So I think that would be good. Yeah. So track 3 rookies. And I've always wanted to do this, some sort of like docu-style, like documentary about the real estate, but you'd have to have like somebody track you for like maybe 2 years to get all the stuff that happens behind the scenes, which is so hilarious sometimes.
And it would be filmed like point of view, like Blair Witch styles with kind of like shaky camera and...
No, like that would be so good. I would actually love that. And I think it would be really hilarious. Like last weekend, me and Ralph and Ian, we were all at the warehouse, our staging warehouse at like 6 a.m, grabbing stuff to put into a listing at the last minute. And all of us looked terrible. And Ian and I were sick. And it would be so awesome to be like, is that what actually happened? So that would be great. Or some of the moments, like, kind of like the real, you know how The Office is shot, the show The Office?
Yeah.
So like the scene happens and then they turn to the camera and then they have commentary. Yeah. Oh my God. That would be so awesome. I'd be like, this person just came to the open house and she's absolutely a psychopath. And she's like, she just asked me if she could, whatever. I don't know. Yeah. That would be really interesting. So I think that would be...
I just had this visual of like, I've been on the phone for 2.5 hours. And if I could just take a gun and shoot myself in the head rather than be on this call for the next 30 minutes, I would do it. Oh, hi, Jim. How are you? Oh, sorry about that. I was a little distracted.
Exactly. So those would be my 2 ideas.
Yeah.
So
there's that.
Yeah.
Those are good ones.
We'll just squeeze those in on the side.
Amazing.
All right. Well, I feel like this is a bit therapeutic, to be honest, talking about this. Yeah. I'm so glad the 3 of us had the chance to have this chat. And I hope our audience found it entertaining. And I hope that some of them comment with some of their behind the scenes hilarity too. That'd be the best.
It's probably time to wrap this up because I got to meet our clients for a liquid lunch.
Yes. I got to get ready and put my makeup on.
I'm getting full glam soon.
Yeah. Oh, my Lamborghini driver's just out front. So we're probably going to have to wrap this up.
Oh, I'm taking the black car with my private driver, Ralph.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. I'm getting my lips filled this afternoon after that.
I think you'd only need to do the upper though.
Yeah, the bottom, I find my bottoms are very full.
Yeah, your bottom is much fuller.
Thank you for that. Okay, well, thank you so much for tuning in to the Toronto Real Estate Podcast. Please remember the world of real estate is more about resilience, hard work, fortitude, and discipline rather than rapid flips and fabulous broker parties. I'd like to be invited to one day.
Yeah.
So join us next time as we continue to explore the real deal challenges and triumphs of the real estate market. And be sure to comment, subscribe, and like. We appreciate you tuning in on behalf of myself, Ralph Fox, the fabulous Corey Marin, and the queen of acquisitions herself, Jessica Spillis-Rubish. I think I got it right this time. Rubash, we love you. Please be sure to hit that like or subscribe button. And thanks for joining in on our party today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye.